It's good, it's better, but nothing beats BESSFM.
Well, this is a good evening. It is for us here at Best 100 FM. How about you, dear listeners? Today is Thursday, close to the weekend. Welcome once again to World Watch, the show which opens doors of information, conversation, answering questions to your situation. Well, I trust you're all driving safely to get home. And I hope that those of you who are driving, you're buckled up well in your seats. This is Carlton, your doorman, waiting to open a selected door this hour, sharing your power, people power, our wonderful, wonderful melting pot. We're streaming live, looking across the world from Jamaica's warm beachfront. I'm also streaming, naturally, to my listeners in the diaspora. Glad to know you're among my viewing audience today. Wherever you are, we're glad to be in this together. Remember, if you're using your Android mobile, stay tuned to our website, www.best.bessfm.com. My email, just a reminder, is carltonydm.bessfm@gmail.com. Our studio lines 279-8473, 279-8474, that's Digicel, and Lime is 906-0955 and 906-5801. And this is how we are setting up for today, and we're moving along. And we want you to be fully aware it's World Watch. And we, as usual, we like to let you know to keep your dial at 100.1, 100.3, 100.5, 100.7, and 100.9. I know what you're thinking this evening, my listeners, here at home and abroad. At least you expect me to give you what happened when I woke up. With all the excitement in Washington, D.C., with all the excitement in Congress, as you know, when they sneeze up there in the USA, we catch a cold. As a matter of fact, I think that's where I got my cold that has been bothering me for the past few days. I am sniffling a lot. But you know, when I woke up this morning, I really felt that the sky would be falling. Why? Because the government, which was shut down, I heard that they're now reopened. And yet the sun rose in the sky, the birds were singing, and there were no bombs falling. Nothing was raining down on the country in Jamaica. And according to President Obama and other Democrats and Republicans, there was no way anything was going to be held. Everything was being held back, and I thought the world was coming to an end. I thought to myself, well, will the mailman be out today? Will the police be working today in Washington, D.C.? I wondered about those things. And then I woke up to hear the news this morning that the senators have come to a deal and they have agreed that they will work together. Isn't that amazing? Whether it was a game show or a strategy, the point is the hysteria that we were worried about never really happened. So you see, my listeners, it tells us that what we worry about sometimes never really happens. And that's why we shouldn't worry. Well, here's what I'm worried about. I have a guest who is in my showroom. He's here waiting. And I'm worried that I am taking up time that he may better use talking to you rather than talking with me right now. And I want to reintroduce to you and just remind you, until he's sitting next to his microphone, I want to remind you that that place that we have been talking about, and I'm sure you're going to guess what that place is, it's Creditinfo. The credit bureau that's the pioneer here in Jamaica, located in Kingston and in New Kingston, right here close to where you are and close to where I am. So in a moment, I'll be telling you a little more about Mr. Kamar Williams, who I am sure you have heard more about him since he left here. But again, I just want you to know, to anticipate him in a brief moment, he'll be introduced formally to you. He's the marketing and sales manager of Creditinfo, who will soon be a word that is common in our vocabulary. When we talk about credit bureau, you will say, oh, you mean credit info? I would say, yes, that's what we're talking about. Anyway, I just want to remind you that I have given you my email address, those of you overseas, and that we're streaming live this evening. Everything is working well. Again, we apologize for yesterday's failure, but here we are. Well, in a moment, we'll be doing that intro. So for this minute, what we will do, I would like you, while we take just a brief interlude, that I will then have Mr. Williams in his chair waiting off with you while you listen to this interlude. This is Carlton, your doorman, saying we are on and we're in for action this evening. Yes, the moment has arrived, and I want you to know that this is World Watch. For those of you driving home, we have that pleasant surprise for you this evening. And for those of you at the dining table, well, don't get your mouth too full, because, well, you won't be talking really. You'll be eating. So remember to listen, because we have some information for your own gestation that you can continue to have conversation about the matter that's under review. And we have this afternoon the sales manager and marketing manager of Creditinfo, that bureau here in Kingston on Dominica Drive. He is here to have a chat with us, and I just want to introduce him in a more formal way because he wants to talk with you. He's not here to play. We simply have to make your day, or to make a bad day, if it was a bad day, a better day. So Mr. Kamar Williams is now joining us in the studio, and I'm just going to let him say hello to my listeners, both here locally and abroad, and then I'm going to ask him, once he does that, a few questions so I can get him to express himself freely to you as to what it is he wants to share with you this evening. So, hello Kamar, it's good seeing you once again.
Hey, how are you doing?
I am doing well. I hope
good.
It wasn't too hot for you when you came in the studio.
It's not too bad.
Okay. We have the AC up right now, and it's pumping a little better. So it's nice when it gets cool, because when it's cool, we think a lot clearer. And my listeners, I think they're much cooler than maybe we are.
Yeah.
They're home, right? And they're driving, comfortable. They have all that going for them. But we're getting comfortable here because it's much cooler.
Yes.
In the studio here. So I'm feeling good, and you're feeling good. Tell me this. By the way, listeners, this is a continuing interview that we had several weeks ago. For those of you who may be watching for the first time this evening, I just want you to be caught up with where we are. This is a continuation of our discussions, and it is in light of the destination that is in store for all of us here in Jamaica, because we here are the consumers, and he'll be addressing you not just as listeners this evening, but as consumers. And the news is out, Kamar. The news is out. I saw you in the Daily Observer. Yes, I did. You and your team. And I am now aware that some bankers are now sending consumer credit data to your office. I'm personally delighted and pleased to know that Creditinfo is moving speedily, and that to me is exciting. Tell me more.
Well, it has been, as you said, very exciting times for us. Having been in operation for almost 3 years now, it has been quite a lot of work. And I'm pleased to say that we have, I'm not certain if I mentioned it last time, but we are now live. We're now probably the only live bureaus out there. And we have been
fantastic. The only live and operating, yes.
And we have been in operations for the past 4 months, which is a tremendous achievement for us, because one of the things that we'll talk about perhaps later on in the program is that for you to generate what is called a credit score, you need a certain amount of history for that. And so, having been in operations for the past 4 months, we are now able to generate credit scores. And like I said, I'll speak a little bit more about that later on the function.
Sure, we look forward to that. Sure.
But certainly, it's quite an exciting time for us, because having now received data from the banks and working with a lot of them to advance their projects, you would recognize that over time, the reports that are going to be provided by Creditinfo are going to be so, enough, so sufficient, that most of the individuals who are seeking to know what your credit exposures are, both from a consumer level and also from a client level where the institutions are on their subjects, there will be so much data in there that the information produced on that report will give us a very predictive picture of one's exposure and situation. And this works in a lot of good ways for both the consumer and also the information providers.
Understood. As they say, would that word be what I find that the commercial district in Jamaica like to use? Robust?
Yeah.
It's going to give you a robust file there on just about every consumer, taking a historical picture and accumulation of historical credit data, which is forwarded to your super center, where you have all this in your central, the brain or whatever your computer thing does. It stores it all, but that will now be under your management, under your what we call confidential storage. Tell us a little more as to how this process tends to take place. From the listener's point of view, give me a sense of the plans that you envisage, the plans you see for your typical consumer out there who is now sitting there eating or driving, and they're hearing about this. Remember, this is new. The word credit bureau, I was joking with someone the other day, and I said it's not furniture we're talking about here,
Right.
Not a wardrobe, not furniture, it's the credit bureau. And tell us more about that bureau.
Well, I mean, it's not furniture. It certainly isn't. It's a very good thing, and it's important Jamaica appreciates what the credit bureau means for them. Let us, and perhaps to help them to appreciate it, let's take the situation as it is now, or what it perhaps was months ago when the bureau wasn't up and running. So what you would find is that as a consumer, when you would have ventured into your borrower, your lending agency to seek credit, now they would have required that you provide them with a lot of information. They need to have information that supports the disclosure of your address. They need to have ID verification information.
I don't mean to interrupt you there, but let me fill that in, because I have had that experience just recently.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine also, and just there's a process which they'll say to us as a potential borrower, well, Carlton, it will be 3 to 5 days possibly, and they give you that with great confidence, 3 to 5 days, and then 3 to 5 days you're still bringing them things that they need. I have to travel all the way to Portland to go get this document, and then I have to find a JP down in St. James, because there was none in Kingston who knew me, because I grew up in St. James, and then that's where I had to go get a JP who could say they know me from I was born.
And then if you're missing something, you'd probably have to go back.
Absolutely. Yeah. You now have to turn around, and they say, just bring that tomorrow. And 5 days gets into 6 days and 7 days. Share with us the light as to what is the intent of Creditinfo to sort of change that scenario and make it a brighter day. How would that fit into the future?
And I like that statement. Change the scenario, make it a brighter day, because that's really what we're here to do. Part of the utilization of a credit bureau means that it makes the entire process a lot more efficient, a lot more quicker for both you, the consumer, as well as for the borrower, the lender that is providing you with the facility. So if you were to take the scenario of someone going into an institution, as you had that experience, and you would have to come into the bank. Let's say I went into the bank and I had to go there, and they would have asked me for proof of address, and I'd have to take this documentation in. Then, of course,
I have to go find a letter, by the way.
You have to find a letter.
Someone wrote me at home, so that is now required of me. And if it's not dated within a certain time frame, that letter, it doesn't qualify.
That's correct. And so now that information goes before, in some instances, a committee, or where a small institution is concerned, maybe a manager, or supervisor, or credit team, and they will pretty much look at that document. But what you find happening now, as it exists in Jamaica, is that a lot of persons are either accepted or denied their loan facility based on a subjective approach.
Very subjective.
Very subjective approach. And so if I probably, if we were to probably look at you and I here, and I went into NCB, all clad in my suit, or any other institution for that matter,
yes.
They may be inclined, and let's face it, we are human beings, we may be inclined.
First impression is last.
Yeah, they may just look at me and see how I dress, and I mean, because I take a little bit more to try and put this together, it takes a lot of time. And so they may be inclined to probably hear my story as opposed to if you were just coming off the street, and maybe the nature of your job does not demand that you attire yourself in this manner, and as such you won't necessarily be going into the institution in that way, and they will probably look at you, they will look at your information, but then the reality of it is that there's going to be some level of subjectivity. I mean, by
that individual officer
right,
sitting at the desk.
I mean, we have been conducting several training sessions with all our institution, and what you find is that the particular part of the training session, I'll ask persons, I'll show them a picture of 4 individuals and ask them to tell me who they would lend money to, and the reality of it is you're always going to get a different response because everyone's assessment or mode of assessment is different. Right. So what the Bureau now does is that it puts a system in place, a structure, that in the event that I am not there as the evaluator of your information and someone is probably sitting in my position, the end result is going to be the same because we are applying a formula to this assessment. We're not just taking a look at how you are. So, you have scenarios where you'd go into the institution and perhaps because the credit manager is not there, the credit committee is not assembled on that, the decision cannot be made. Because
which is what they were telling today to
you had that experience.
Right, that's the
experience.
You go. It has to be deferred to a later date because the right people were not on the spot.
That is correct. So it simply means now is that they would have this system and this structure in place, and it's this tool that we are providing in the form of credit reports and credit scores, and they're now able to just look at that data, look at the information that's provided, and make a decision very quickly. So coming back to the situation where we're all dressed differently or maybe perceived differently, it doesn't matter. Right, it really doesn't matter. If the handcart man comes into the institution requesting a loan, it doesn't matter whether or not he's an handcart man, because at the end of the day, what the institutions are really concerned with is how is he treating with his credit? How is he managing the credit? Because what they're more interested in is whether or not by lending him this money, he's going to default or not default on his loan. Right? And what he's wearing or where he lives is of no concern or contributor to how that happens. It's really how he treats with his affairs.
What you're saying then, Kamar, is that because everyone potentially has income, some type of income, every human being out there, we want them to be fully employed.
That's correct.
Whatever they do, from the brain surgeon to the mailman, right, to the pilot, everyone we expect, the nurse, the handcart man who moves the wares around when you go downtown and you're there in South Parade and North Parade. These guys do a very good job moving baskets of products from one end of town to the other.
Correct.
And he's doing it for income, not for a workout. He's doing it for income. So what you're saying is every consumer, whatever they do, the bottom line is you're looking at income. You're looking at money and the management of money.
And more the management of their exposures, because we're really interested to see how is it that they've treated with the past facilities that they have been given. How is it that they were able to manage it in their existing environment? And that is really what is critical. How did you manage that affair? Because ultimately, your past is just as an good indicator for your present. Right. Because how you treated with that affair in the past is as good a judgment as to how you may treat with it in the future, all things being equal. And so that is the sort of information that we're providing. Like I said, we are not really concerned with how you look or where you live. So the
appearance is not...
It's not important.
I can dress to impress, but you're saying if I'm not dressed to impress, that should not create any kind of depression on my part.
That's perfectly correct. Okay. So we are part of the initiative, the strategy to develop the country, because what you may not know or what the listeners may not know is that access to credit has proven to stimulate the development in several economies.
You can say that again.
And this is not, I must point out that the Bureau is not new. A credit bureau is not new. Credit environment such as the one we have now created has existed for years in different territories. And in several researches that have been done, in several surveys that have been conducted, the presence of a credit bureau has always ended up stimulating development in the economy. And it's a very powerful message that we want to deliver because we are part of that strategy. We are here to help Jamaica get off our feet and move forward towards a developed country.
Well, I tell you, Kamar, that to me is saying a mouthful, because what we hear at Best 100 FM, what we're doing is sensitizing the community to anticipate the very things that you're talking about. We're trying to let them be aware that there's a brighter day, because you are here and you are preparing the way for them, that they can grow and grow and grow. And that growth is what you're calling, what we call the benefit that you will provide, because of course you are prepared to do such a thing. That's what you're about. Sounds very good. Well, I tell you what, let's take a break. And our engineer, I see he's very much interested also, because he's keenly listening to this interesting subject. And you, my listeners, I know you're also listening out there, and that I know you're excited about what this discussion is. So Mr. Williams will be back in a moment. So will I be. This is Carlton, your doorman. And those of you listening overseas, I know you won't fly down for credit, but at the same time, be aware. Creditinfo is here. We'll be right back. Well, it's a Thursday, and it's still a Thursday, because we are here, World Watch. We are here on time, 5 o'clock, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. And more than being on time, we have a very, very urgent and important conversation going on here, and that's